was 14, 15 in Fort Worth. And that's where the family began, in Fort Worth. My mom, her name is Margaret. My father's name was Manuel.
And well, that's my father's name.
Cool.
Oh, look
I
at
love
that.
it.
See,
There
yeah,
we
that's what
go.
I'm talking about. Hey, Dad, how
And
you doing?
so anyway, let's see, by the time they actually got married, he was 18, I believe, and she was like barely 15.
Okay.
So I mean, back then it
That was
was not that
normal.
big a
Yeah,
deal,
that's normal back then.
and so then then she had us kids in Fort Worth, and my dad, he had a variety of different jobs, but it was interesting because my mom's side, she it's interesting in itself because my abuelito, as we would call him, or my uh, great grandfather, he was a little bitty guy. He was only like 4'11", pretty much where she is.
Wow.
But he actually fought in the wars with Pancho Villa,
Wow.
and there was
Who can claim that? Who can
yeah,
say that your grandfather
yeah,
fought with Pancho
my
Villa?
great grandfather,
Oh, yeah.
and what he did was there was a battle called the Battle of Buffalo Hill in Mexico, and that's when the rebels, who he was a part of, actually defeated the federal troops. It was the first time that, and probably one of the few times that ever happened. So he had a lot of stories about, back in the cowboy days, riding a horse, and a lot of the women, the wives, and the kids would actually travel with the rebels, and they would, bury them if they had to, take care of their wounds, feed them, and they even fought. There's a big history about that is not known about the women in Mexico that fighting against the government like that, they actually fought against the
Wow.
government. They, they carried rifles and everything, ammo. But anyway, so when my dad came here, my earliest remembrances was living off of Eighth Avenue, uh, and we had this house, and that's where my memories started to build. In fact, I'm getting old now, but my
Don't worry, your wife will tell you every
oh yeah,
day.
she will. I had my oldest sister, Linda.
Yeah. No, you can say
Yeah,
however you would say it, Linda.
okay, and then my oldest brother, Manuel Jr. Now both of them have died. So
Yeah.
then there was me. Then there was my younger brother Anthony, and then my youngest sister, who's now 54, but she was not born until we went to Diamond Hill, Victoria. Her married name is Victoria Walton.
Oh, nice.
So anyway, we grew up in Diamond Hill, and back in the '60s, Fort Worth was a way different place.
Oh, absolutely.
Uh, my mom, who her claim to fame, as I call it, was that in 1963, when President Kennedy stayed in the Hotel Texas, she was the manager of the laundry department there, and she actually took care of Kennedy's suit that night before, because they were having their breakfast by the Chamber of Commerce,
Wow.
and her, and I believe his name was Mr. Shipman. He was like the manager of the hotel or something like that. And she actually took care of his suit to make sure it looked real nice, and I would tell my mom many years, I said, Mom, do you realize that that suit is in the National Archives?
Yeah, she's part of history.
Yeah, but see, a lot of people don't really know about those little bitty things like
Well,
that.
that's why you're on the show, so you can talk about it.
There we
So now
go.
they're gonna know your mom.
Yeah, and so she's 89. She's still feisty. My father passed away a little bit after I retired.
I'm sorry about that.
But one thing neat about growing up with my dad is that my dad was a very honorable man, and as a young kid, your parents will do things and you don't think about it till you're much older.
And you fully understand.
Yeah, and the one thing that he did that I will always remember, and it's made me what I am today, is we would go to Mexico. We would get in our old '57 Ford station wagon. We'd pile all the kids in the
Holy
back,
man.
and it was safe to drive down the international highway, which cuts through these mountains and stuff. And one time we were kind of somewhere between Monterey and Mexico City, and we went off road. And I was asking my dad, what are we doing, And he said, "Don't worry about it." Don't worry about it. So he stopped the car, and you could look down in a kind of a little valley, and you could see this little bitty town. It wasn't very big. He got out. He took his shoes off, and this is not a it's like gravel type road. And my mom got in the driver's seat and she started driving real slow. My dad started walking barefooted going into this. And it wasn't, I just know it was like a long ways. And I just know that, all of us get out like, oh, dad's walking. We got out, we started, but I really never knew what he did. And so we went all the way down this dirt run, down into this little town. And we went to the Catholic church there. And he went inside, stayed for a while, came back out. He put his shoes back on. And then we got back on the road and then headed to Mexico City. Well, for a long time, I kept thinking, it stuck in my mind, why did we do that? So I said, Dad, I remember that one time we went to Mexico and you walked barefooted and for a long time, And he goes, well, let me tell you something, son. He says, back when I ran away from home, says I had no food, I was hungry, and I saw this truck that had ice on it, and I stole some ice and was eating the ice because I had nothing to eat. And he slept in the mountains. Well, it's cold, and he started getting sick. And the only thing he could do was walk to the nearest little town, which that this was. And actually, I think it was, can't remember the name of the town, but on his grave marker, it has the Saint of Ochoa, I believe is what it is.
Ochoa.
Yeah, and it's on his tombstone. And again, this is the kind of reflection it had where he wanted it on there. And I said, well, Dad, why did you do that? He goes, again, I wanted to come back. When I got sick, I knocked on the door of the church, and the priest came out and saw how sick I was, and I was almost died. And he said he brought me in, he got me warm, he fed me food, he got me shoes until I got better, and then I left. And I promised God that if I ever made it to where I could be successful and survive, that one day I will come back to this little town the way I came the first time.
That's cool.
And
That's heartfelt.
I know when I heard that story, I was like, son of a gun,
Yeah.
and it just my heart just just, and so from there, we I just went on from there, and my dad again, he worked for Barrett's Bakery
Wow.
for like 45 years.
I bet you he was probably the hardest worker there.
Oh, he was. I mean,
Oh.
he knew Vernon Baird, the original Baird's guy.
Wow.
When I went to, well, anyway, I'll get to another story here. I graduated from Diamond Hill, and which was not easy because back then a lot of Hispanics were not respected for their knowledge about being, quote, smart. Yes, we had a lot of them, but teachers really didn't expect you to, they expect you to get your girlfriend pregnant or girlfriend get, and work in the grocery stores and become a mechanic. And a lot of several of us were like, no, we're better than that. And I had one teacher named Mr. Honeycutt, and he was an Air Force veteran. And I told him, look, I don't want to just stay here. I want to be something. I want to do something. And back then, that was during the times of the rocket launches and the astronauts and stuff. So he says, never let anybody tell you can't do anything. He says, I recommend the Air Force. That's where I would. So I did. And so I wanted to join the Air Force, but I didn't know exactly how to do it. And every summer we would go to the boys club, and one night they said, okay, all you boys meet us here at 6:00 and we're going to pay for dinner. Well, that's all I knew. But back during that time, they had a special guest speaker. And the name of that guest speaker was Bob Lilly. So Bob Lilly gets up there and he talked about TCU and talked about, all the great things that the Dallas Cowboys, had done for him and stuff. And I just looked at him and I said, that's where I'm going to go to school one day. So when I graduated from Diamond Hill, I took the, my entrance exams and SAT scores, and I scored really well on it, which surprised a lot of teachers. But then I entered TCU in 1973 when I graduated.
Holy mackerel. I was born in 79, so I don't want to make you feel old or anything.
Well, you just did.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to hold that over your head. But really, back then, it was the Air Force ROTC. and it was they have what they call detachments there. And so, a lot of my friends, who some of them that I still am friends with today, that are now retired, full retirement Air
Wow.
Force, are there. And so from there, I did my college years there. TC was a much smaller school back then. uh, Today's school, I mean, God, just it's
It's
so
enormous.
huge, it's enormous.
It is.
Uh, we never won a football game. As I look at it, the big joke around at that time with TCU's was I-35, TCU nothing. Okay, that was the big joke, and
I gotta remember that one.
yeah, because
I-35 TCU nothing.
nothing, and so we I did take a classes in communications. They taught us the very basic things like how to run cameras, how to do studios, how to make movies, radio, very much like we're doing
Yes.
now. Of course, this is way more advanced
Yeah.
back then. And I it was not easy my first year at TCU. I actually got put on academic probation because I high school didn't really prepare me for going to that next level. But because I had a full time job and I was going to school full time, and I thought I was the king of the hill.
My goodness.
And then, but I had to make a decision. I said, okay, look, give up your car, you know, give up any thoughts of marriage, because I had my first wife I was married to, and her name was Pauline.
Yes.
But during that time, and so I, she was never really pleased with me doing anything, especially when I went in the Air Force. But what I did do though is that I said, okay, I'm going to give up all this stuff and I'm going to focus on just my schoolwork at TCU. And it was hard, but I did it. And I signed a contract with the Air Force my right after my sophomore year. And what they would do is that before then, you had if you had any scholarships from high school or Texas equalization grants and stuff. So I worked real hard, and as my parents did too, to make sure, because back then it was $75 a semester higher.
Oh my gosh.
But even back then, I mean, it must have been 3,000
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
So, but and then I said, okay, I'm going to live on campus, so I had to add that to the cost. So I went to an Air Force ROTC boot camp at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. Well, I'd never been on an Air Force base, so I really didn't know what to expect, and I'd never really flown before up until that time. So they stuck me on this plane and out of DFW, and I didn't really know what to expect, and then all of a sudden, but I had a first class ticket. I'm like,
What?
whoa, I could. So I flew
Get used to
into
this.
I flew into Los Angeles, and then from there, we took a this little bitty plane to Santa Barbara, I believe, and it was a Hughes Airlines, like Howard Hughes. That's part of his
Yeah.
deal. So, and this was a double prop plane, and it was doing all this number shaking.
Oh yeah.
So, and then from there, they got us basically a bus to go into Vandenberg Air Force Base. Now, let me explain about Vandenberg Air Force Base. Anybody, you guys out there has been at Vandenberg, it's like the Twilight Zone. Okay. Vandenberg, and I did go back to Vandenberg for later training as I was active duty,
Yes.
is that it's right outside of this really beautiful place called Lompoc, California. It's the flower capital of the world. If you go out there, there are acres of rows of different color flowers. It looks
Wow.
beautiful. And as you drive up the mountainside and you start getting into Vandenberg Air Force Base, it gets foggy and dark and cold. And ice plant, I hate ice plant. That's all they have all over that base,
That's it.
ice plant. And when you walk on it, it crunches and stuff. So now, once you commit it, then you owe the government 4 years after you graduate. But I wanted that. Some guys didn't. I don't mind me doing RTC, but I'm not going to, go into the military. And see, this was at the end of the Vietnam War. So, there was a lot of mixed feelings about, do I go in? And even though a lot of people say, you were crazy to think about it, but if I had to go to Vietnam, I would have. But I felt that, I wanted to be a military officer. So when I graduated from TCU in 1977, that was definitely one of the more prouder times of my life for several reasons. One, not only did I get my bachelor's degree out of TCU, but I also got my commission as a second lieutenant. A lot of us that were in full uniform, and we had our parents pin our bars on and stuff. It
Yeah.
was a big ceremony. And then, I wasn't going to take that uniform off. I worked real hard for it. And we put our gowns, cap and gowns, over that. And then that night, we went through the TCU graduation ceremony. And my dad and mom were just so proud of me. And so then from there, I had to wait a couple of months before I got my orders. And and I was excited, kind of scared a little bit because I had also just gotten married to my first wife, and I didn't really know what to expect. I never really traveled before like that. And from there, I got my orders, and it was to go for my first bit of training because I was assigned as a missile launch officer.
Ooh.
So
You had the safety of American lives in your hands.
oh, it's more than that.
Oh, I
I'll explain
know.
that in a second here.
Yeah.
So I went to Shepherd Air Force Base, which I understand is still there, and we did about 6 months of training. They taught us how to do that form of electronics. I mean, if you did it today, you'd think that you went back to caveman days.
Yeah.
But how to read the special ohm meters that we had to do tests and how that worked. They taught us just a variety of different things. And then from there, they said, okay, you finished training here at Shepherd Air Force Base. Now you got 1 week to get to Vandenberg Air Force Base. So now I'm going back to at least somewhere I'd been before.
Yes.
So myself and two other officers, we kind of traveled like a little caravan, and I'd never driven across country like that. And we went through New Mexico, saw the Painted Desert, and all the different beautiful, mountains and colored, it was just gorgeous going out there.
America's beautiful.
Oh yeah. And I had a little bit of a trouble with this brand new van that I bought. It broke down in Bakersfield, California. That's when you can actually. I spent a week there one afternoon.
Oh no.
Because Bakersfield, it was hot, but it was like a fuel field. We fixed it, and then we went into California. Now during the 70s, California was a different animal.
It wasn't a socialist garbage bag like it is
oh
now.
no, not at all.
Oh.
It was just very open-minded, though. I mean,
Yes.
Santa Maria, San Luis Obispo, these little towns that you would drive through, and you go up in the hills, and you could actually see where the floods and stuff had happened before. You'd be driving in literally like
A valley.
and you could look up and see the water line from the waters and the rains that came down, and
when
nothing
it
to
used
hold
to
it.
flood. Wow.
And so then when we got to Vandenberg Air Force Base, now everything really got serious when we got to Vandenberg Air Force Base. They get you in there. They say, okay, now you have to understand now. So you're in a different phase now. It says everything you do, you've been cleared as TSSBI, top secret. And everything you do, you have to be careful when you say it, how you say it, how you present it, because, there's always going to be somebody that's going to may want to try to get this information away from you. I'm thinking, oh, really? So anyway, they taught us everything about the Titan II missile, which was actually used to launch some of our early Gemini. And they taught us how the system worked, what rocket fuel it used, which actually I never forgot because it was even hard to say. It was nitrogen tetroxide and unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine.
Yeah, it's what you said. Yeah. I know.
So when you put those two together, there's an explosion and boom, it goes up.
Yep.
So they took us down into the first silo. It was like a mock-up kind of deal. Say, okay, this is what you're going to live in. And we went down these stairs from this, looks like a little outhouse up front there. And next to that was this gigantic door. It's a 500-ton door on rails.
Holy.
And they explain how that worked. And basically, it runs off hydraulics. They have something that's called T-bolts that come up into the door and they turn and lock it down. It's all done by hydraulics. I had no idea hydraulics was that strong. So they taught us, how it worked and everything, and how the system worked and what our responsibilities were. And the most sensitive thing was learning the EWO, emergency war orders, because some of those things we can't even discuss today because they're still semi in use. We don't
Yes,
want.
they're just modified to
Yeah,
today's.
yeah. And now it's more computerized and everything. And during that time, they said, "Okay, you are going to go to McConnell Air Force Base in Wichita, Kansas."
No,
I'm like, never been to Wichita before, so that's where I went, and I was there for 4 years. And the one thing about Wichita, Kansas, is that it's hot in the summer and it's cold in the winter, and there's not any in between. The wind also always blows, and it's like being in front of a gigantic hair dryer
the whole time.
Yeah, and the way the system was worked out was you had Wichita, Kansas, which was a nice little size city, and then from there, you would drive out to the various locations of where the missile complexes were, which were anywhere from 50 to 150 miles. So it depended. You'd get up early in the morning. You'd have roll call at 6 o'clock. You do a watch clock check on your make sure you're all set, and then you'd have a crew of 4 people. You had your launch commander, your deputy, a person we called a BMAT, and then another one called an MFT. The enlisted were the BMAT and the MFT. Their job was to handle all the systems that support the missile. Our job was to do the EWO, grab those keys, stick those keys in, calculate the timing that was set, by somebody else greater than us, and turn those keys and launch that missile. And that's a big responsibility. I'm 21 years old, and I mean, yeah, when you go into war, and you think, okay, I got a gun, and here we were going to be wiping out whole cities and civilizations, and you're thinking, man, this little key does that, these 2 keys. And sometimes we would go out to the missile, and it was really impressive because picture a 707 with no wings sitting on these gigantic shocks.
Yes.
And you could actually just walk up there and just, lower the platform and just touch it. And that was a nuke. And you're thinking, man, when you're young and you're thinking, oh, geez, what did I get myself into kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I did that for 4 years.
Oh, hold your thoughts right there, Fernando.
Gotcha.
We will be back. This is Vet for Vets, and this is my friend here, Fernando Marin. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in a little bit.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Out-of-date carpet giving you the blues? Tired of your old dingy and broken tile? Let my friends at the Floor Store in Cleburne, Texas give your home the makeover it deserves. This is Old Taco Joe coming to you for the Floor Store. Whether it's carpet, tile, wood flooring, or real wood laminate, the Floor Store can cover all of your flooring needs. Located at 405 West Henderson Street in Cleburne, Texas, owner Brent Harris can help. Shower tile, tub surrounds, even backsplashes. Give him a call today at 817-641-9444. The Floor Store, they got you covered.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Angelo Roca. I'm the host of Vet for Vets. I'm with Fernando Marin.
Marin.
Mhm. That was such a great story you said about your dad. I actually got kind of little butterflies listening to that.
Well, when he told me that story of why he did that, it
That's
just
so good.
yeah, and right there, and I said that's duty, that's honor. You know,
Well, I'm glad you got to tell that story because I know you've been wanting to tell that so bad.
I really have for so many years. And matter of fact, I did tell that story to over in Kennedale where my kids were going to school, and I told that lady, one of the ladies there, that was this, she started crying.
I'm gonna do a little bit of a little thing
okay.
here. Joco Community Radio is proud to be the voice of Johnson County, Texas, and is live 24/7 on the TuneIn Radio Network. TuneInJoco.com is the place to find all the ways to listen and watch, and the station app is also available for free on Android and Apple devices. You hear that? It's actually free.
Yeah,
anybody can go to Apple and Android and just download it for free. Simply search your store. Check out our lineup and more at JocoCommunityRadio.com. This episode and more are brought to you by Patriot Claims, making your insurance work for you. Reach out to your Texas sales rep at 844-TEX-HAIL. That's 844-TEXHAIL, or that's 844-839-4245. Also, be sure to dress your arms and more at thetiffy.com. That's actually Tiffany's store where you can buy all sorts of cool little things. And
I'm sure my wife is going to hear
about
that.
She needs to go to that website. It's amazing. So I know I told you about this, and I know you didn't know. If you are a veteran in crisis or you're concerned about one, hear that, Fernando? If you're concerned about one, please call the free suicide crisis hotline at 988. Yes, that's 988. You're going to hear this person come on. It's going to tell you, hey, you want to press 1 for veterans, press 2 for first responders, blah, blah, blah. You click 1. Just so you know, it works. You can also text 838-255 if you want. That's 838-255, and somebody will respond to you. If you are a veteran or you're somebody in need, that's the suicide hotline that was actually put in place by our President Trump. But a lot of people on the left aren't pushing that because they don't want to make it to where he wins.
I was not aware of that.
Yes,
at all
because they want to make
morning.
sure you don't know, because that's how they work.
Yep.
So if there's one thing to take away from today's show, it would be that you are not alone. You hear me? If you're a veteran, you are not alone. The Veterans Crisis Hotline works and is there for you. Listen to me. Your life has meaning. Your life does matter. Your life means so much to so many people. So never, ever give up. You hear me? Shoot, I'll even let you call me if you need to. I'm here for you. I'm here for everybody that wants to listen. I'm quite sure Fernando is somebody who's the same way.
Oh, yes.
Have you ever been in a spot where you needed to talk to somebody?
Yeah, there has been. Matter of fact, when my wife was constantly telling me you need to go to the VA. You need to go to the VA. And now I have a psychiatrist out there. And I just saw him just about a week ago.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, anyway, I go there, and I do have to take some medications and stuff to keep my head on.
Oh, nice. Well, you seem to have a really good head on your shoulders, especially the career you've had. I mean, 30 years in the police department after pretty much having the lives of every single human being on a key in your hand.
Yeah. And being a policeman was really different. But
want to talk about that?
Well, I will just say I want to mention something. Is when I was stationed at McConnell Air Force Base, that's when I had my daughter, Julie. Now, Julie.
Hey, Julie.
Yeah, and Julie, when you get a daughter, you're always going to treat your daughter different, okay? And I always did. And she's the only person in the entire families that was born not in Texas. So she's the family's Jayhawk.
Yeah.
And then once I left McConnell, because I became a disaster preparedness officer, and that job entailed, because they were deactivating the Titan II missiles.
Have you applied for the White House yet? Since that's a total disaster.
I sure thought about it.
Oh my gosh, you'd be perfect for it. Natural disaster up in there.
But basically that job was handling natural, man-made, and military disasters. If a plane went down and it was in our region, I was the one that would go out there and organize, the commanders and response and all those type of things.
Oh, my
and
gosh.
if we went to war, then I taught chemical weapons. You know how to, the M17A1 mask, which you guys know what that is.
If you don't know what the MC,
Yeah, yeah, and I was the guy that you'd wear the mask. I grabbed it and took it off your face and shoved you
Yeah.
in a room with
Yeah.
CS.
you ever try that, covering somebody's little canister?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I trained for that. But unless in the Air Force, one thing about the Air Force is if you were not having to head where you had wings, they really didn't want to keep you around. Not really, not then. So basically, they started what was called a RIFT program, and basically, if you wanted to do the full 20 and out type thing, and you couldn't fit into their officer ranks because there were too many, what they would do is they say, okay, you can stay, but you're going to have to go in a reduced rank of E6, and but when you retire, you can leave at the highest rank you had. Well, I said, well,
That makes no sense to
well,
me.
that's just what they did, and I think they knew what would happen because
That's a demotion.
well,
Absolute demotion.
yeah, I mean, but that's like being a police officer, and then they say, okay, we're going to make you a
Mall security.
mall security, or even worse, the school crossing guard.
Oh,
And you're like, no. So I said, okay, I need to get into something that was much less than that. Oh, I need to bring up my son Alex. He was born at Carswell.
bring up every single one of your kids. Huh?
Yeah, he was born at Carswell Air Force Base. And matter of fact, those were the last years that Carswell had it, where it was a base hospital. And I did have my son Nicholas. He was born as I was a police officer in Fort Worth.
Oh, nice.
And now they have a half brother. His name is Matthew. And
Hi, Matt.
and
We won't forget about you, Matt.
Oh yeah, and his half brother, their half brother rather, he's just one of the boys to me. There's no really separation. No, he has a different dad. I'm like,
No, you're the dad.
yeah, me. Yeah. So, but anyway, so I needed to do something that I felt is close to serving, but yet not civilian. I didn't know how to be a civilian now. I'd been away from it too long. And so I said, I always wanted to be a policeman. It always stuck in my mind. So when I was fixing to get out, I said, but I still want to kind of hang on a little bit. So I signed up at the 301st Tactical Fighter Wing, which is 301st, but it's under, I forgot what they call it out there now. And they flew F4s, and I was out there for several years. And I enjoyed living both worlds, but then it started to get to where police work, when I became a commissioned police officer, and which being an officer in Texas is a big deal. I mean, you're a Texas lawman, and it was a different time, different laws, different era. And so, but I felt, well, I can't give my heart and soul to one or the other. So it was just a reserve. So then I left the reserves, and then I started with the Fort Worth Police Department, and I spent 30 years there, and I had done everything.
That's incredible.
I did patrol. I did something called neighborhood policing. I worked in undercover narcotics. I worked in the gang unit. And you see the gambit of people all across the board there, and it's
sad.
It's way different than military, because when you're on a base it's just like any other job you have. You don't know really what's going on in a neighborhood or a city. It's like those old radio programs, the detective on the beat, and they would talk about all the underlying slime and scum that's out there. But you think, oh, that's just made up stories. But really it's not, because when I opened the paper or heard the news, it was only headline news.
It's all negative.
Yeah. And, but then when you became a police officer, then all of a sudden you see, the guy that, who lives behind you, you didn't know he beat up his wife every Thursday night, or, his kid stole 8 cars, and then, as I spent more time in as in the police department, I had to learn how to, be able to try to control a lot of the emotions that I still had. I wanted to treat people as fairly as I felt that they needed to be treated. I didn't want to let it go to my head where I just wanted to start beating up people for whatever reason, take them behind a house and do that kind of number.
Yeah.
And because I had been a commander, because I had lived that life before, uh, even my current wife, who I'm married to now, and have been married to Denise for 28 years,
28 years.
and so she would say, well, "Why don't you promote? Why don't you become a sergeant? Why don't you become a lieutenant?" But I had been there before, and a lot of I have to admit, a lot of there's some people have rank that earn it and very responsible and very mature, and they do it what I would consider the correct way. Then you got other people where they shouldn't have even been policemen. And you guys out there that it went from military to police, you know what I'm
Nepotism.
talking about.
Nepotism.
Yeah, you want to call it that, whatever. but I've been put into several very dangerous situations by supervisors that put me in a very life and death situation because they wanted to make sure they knew that they were my boss. But I had others that were just fantastic people.
Are you still friends with any
Oh
of those?
yes, oh yes. We do have a pretty close network of people on Facebook. The only sad thing is, and my dad even warned me about this, is when my dad worked at Barrett's all that years, he would start seeing when he retired, a lot of his very close friends pass away. And of course, I really didn't quite understand that. And I would say, well, Dad, they're getting old and it's everybody's time, that kind of thing. Well, now it's happening to me. A lot of the guys, some of them died from COVID. Others, I did have several good friends that died, in the line of duty, and they were murdered. There were two of them that got hit by DWI. One that somebody tried to rob at a park when he was out there with a date, and they shot and killed him.
Oh my goodness!
But at least I helped find through the good detective work and the good people that they were great detectives. We found those people. They're in prison as we speak. Have I sent a lot of people to the penitentiary? Oh yeah. Would they love to kill me if they ever got out? Oh yeah. Would I protect myself and they know I would kill them? Oh yeah. But I don't worry about that anymore. But I'm seeing a lot of my friends pass away, and that's hard on you because you knew their families, you knew the wives, you knew the kids.
Yeah.
You played baseball with the kids. You coached their kids, and it's pretty tough. And COVID was very hard on a lot of police officers because they're out in the public. They were more susceptible. I had a very good sergeant friend of mine. He bought in my neighborhood because of our recommendation, and him and his wife were there. And then he caught COVID and he passed away. And I'm always going to miss him. But there are other people that we had an officer, retired officer, died just yesterday. So we keep a very close tab. Kevin Foster, he works for the sheriff's department. He organized and put this little Facebook retired officers deal together, and he's the one that's really been kind of holding it together. And he's retired now, but he's still in law enforcement.
Good.
One day he's going to turn that stuff away
Eventually.
But again, he really put that in, and so we're losing a lot of people. And every once in a while, I'll hear about some of my Air Force friends that have passed away, and a lot of times it's from a variety of different things.
Wow. So speaking of people dying, which I don't want to talk about people dying, but veterans, a lot of them die.
Yes. And
I just want to bring up before you say anything. Did you know, Fernando, that an average of 372 World War II veterans die each day?
I did not know that figure.
Of those 16 million that served in World War II, less than 500,000, actually some think it's even probably 400,000 are still alive today, just because of time.
I have had the honor of meeting at the VA hospital in Dallas, more there, and also the VA clinic here in Fort Worth. Again, which I highly recommend that you guys, if you've got any type of sickness or injury that happened when you were active duty, please try to get a rating. Now, it used to be I didn't take advantage of that. I had hurt my legs in the military, and it wasn't until this old vet that used to live across the street from where my kids live, he goes, why don't you get to the VA and get a rating? And I go, oh, I don't know, and it takes too much. he finally talked me into it. And then when I found out that I had all these veteran rights that nobody ever told me
Yeah.
about.
Back then, nobody ever said
No,
anything.
back when I left active duty, it was basically, hey, look, we appreciate what you did for us. You did a great job. There's a door.
Yeah.
You know,
A little pat on the back for
yeah,
what you've
and
done.
you know, but they didn't say, okay, you know, you have burial rights, you have this, this, and this, and this is something a lot of guys have to understand. That I'm going to be 68 in December. The one thing you got to remember is that when you served, you have the right to be buried at the National Cemetery. A lot of people think, oh, you got to be a hero, you got to be dying. No, no. You can easily find one of the services that are out there that provide for veterans. You can look it up online. There are a ton of out there that says, okay, we will help do pre-planning for you. My wife and I did our pre-planning here within this last year. And okay, guys, you earned that right. One thing, it's going to be easier on your family because you don't have to buy a burial plot. You don't have to find a cemetery and all that. You're not going to know it, but your family's going to know it. I highly recommend that you try to do a pre-planning. It's very inexpensive. Your wife can be buried with you. I don't know if you necessarily want her to be there to talk to eternity with, but again, I would want my wife buried and with me. And so a lot of people don't know that. They don't know that you can be buried right with each other. And
to be honest with you, that's actually kind of new information.
yeah,
That's interesting.
So I highly recommend that because National Cemetery, when I asked them to start asking questions, they go, look, we don't care what you do on your service. If you want to have it at a cathedral or a little church or even in your house,
Yeah.
it says just get your body to us. And as long as you have in there, do you want a military funeral? They do the presentation of the flag. They do it. Take advantage of this. They owe us. You served, you did something a lot of people couldn't, wouldn't do, but we did it. And you don't have to be a combat hero. I mean, you could have been a maintenance guy, but if you served, you were part of the machine. Take advantage of what the government owes you because they owe you. You need to make sure. So if and when the time comes, which by the way, I'm a cancer survivor. And
how many years now?
Let's see. That happened in 2012. I had renal carcinoma. I had to remove part of my left kidney out. Well, you don't think about death until all of a sudden it's like right there on your face. Now, I could have been killed at any time in the military, any time as a police officer, but you don't think about it till it really hits you, that wall, And so
all the chemicals you were around down there in those silos.
Yeah. And here's something else that I'll bring up real quick. Guys, when you file for a disability, you have to remember that sometimes you're going to have to fight for it. The first time you put in for a disability, they're going to do whatever they can to tell you no, it wasn't. It had to be military related. Well, how do they know you didn't get it earlier and it's just now reflecting on you now? And that's what I feel my cancer may have come from. I have tinnitus. And the first time I put in for that, they go, yeah, unless you got your medical records. How would I know what tinnitus was?
Yeah, right.
So there are services out there that are at no cost run by veterans. You can go online and look them up, and they will help represent you at no cost to you. And they'll fight for you. And you need to fight for this stuff because, as you well know, the government, they won't say nothing until you ask, and even then, sometimes you got to point a gun at them.
That's it.
And I don't want the FBI knocking on my door, but I'm just saying we need to fight for the rights that we have entitled. Now, when I do go to the VA, I get all my medications from them, and I don't get it free there but I do get it like $3 for this or $2 for that kind of thing, and it all depends on what type of retirement you have. Now I'm one of the fortunate ones. I have a pension from the city. I do have my VA disability check, and I'm now on Social Security. So there are a lot of vets out there that are homeless. There are a lot of vets out there that barely, they're bitter. They're hard on themselves because they figure if I get sick, where do I go? There are programs within the VA that you definitely need to look into and take advantage of, because there's no reason why you served that you should be homeless. There's no reason that, and unless you want to be, but that's not necessarily the case. But you just, you're a human being. Our early lives are done. It's been set in stone. But I'm very proud to have served. A lot of you are very proud. When I go to the porch, or I go down here to eat, or go out to the old South and stuff like that, take advantage of that 10%. Or O'Reilly's, for instance, they'll give you a little bit to show your VA card. If you don't have a disability, you can still go down to the VA and get a VA ID card. A lot of guys don't know
A lot
that.
of people don't know that.
Hey, what's it going to hurt? Okay, on Veterans Day, so and so offers a free meal. Just show them that you're a veteran. Boom, save you 10, $15, whatever it costs now.
Yeah.
But be strong as a veteran, because again, I always recognize, especially the World War II. Real quick story: after 9/11, they hired police officers at DFW Airport to to watch the gates. We didn't expect anybody to come in with a gun or nothing, or terrorists, but you never know. So I was, I just basically stood there and looked real pretty, my uniform and everything, and all these people. And I saw this gentleman sitting, a very old gentleman, and I saw a lot of actors go through those gates too. But I saw this very old gentleman, and he was taking off his shoes, and I walked, and he had a cap on it. It said Tarawa. And I looked at that, and my heart dropped for one, because there was no question that he had been there. And I walked up to him and I apologized to him. I said, look, sir, I am so sorry that you're going to have to go through the screening. You above anybody in this planet does not deserve that. And he told me real quickly how long he had spent on Tarawa, and real quickly what he did and what he saw. And guys, that was the living hell there in places, Iwo Jima and Tarawa. And I'm pretty sure he's not alive today, but I apologize to him. As a veteran, heartfelt as a veteran, because I knew that, guys like him should not have to go through, politics like that.
That's all it is.
So, but I mean, that stuck with me for a long time.
So I'm going to ask you one question.
Sure.
Unless you're don't want to answer. You as a veteran sometimes get treated a certain way by the younger generation.
Oh yeah.
If you can tell something to the newer generation that explains what it is to be a veteran and how life is like as a veteran, what would you say to them?
Well, I'm fortunate because I've got some grandkids that are in that age group. Now, with my son Nick, he has his children, Hayden, Andrew Wyatt, and Lena. And I have two grandsons live with me. It's Derek Walker and Adrian Walker. Now, Derek, I get a lot of input from them about how they think, how the young people think, because I don't talk to anybody that young anymore. And my grandson Adrian is in the junior ROTC at Joshua. And the one thing and I've offered to go talk to his class should they want me to, because it's nice to see him in uniform on Wednesday.
It's
and
very cool.
And he's real proud of that. But it's basically to make them understand that regardless of the ideas and liberal ideas or whatever, that you live in a country that is the most unique in its history until it's not here anymore. Duty, honor, country. And it's hard to make young people understand that if they don't believe in that, it will not be here when they reach my age. As far as politics go, I don't like what's currently on hand. I saw a veteran, he was a World War II veteran. It was on YouTube, and he was crying because he said, "This is not the country I fought for. This is not what and I'm almost looking at the same thing."
He's not wrong.
No, he's not
That's
wrong
what's
at all.
going on.
And if you want to go out here and expand all types of different crazy laws, I'm just not going to be a part of it. We have to have rule of law. We have to have right and wrong. And it's important to know those things.
What's the happiest day in your life that you can recall? Just the one moment that stands out that you can probably, other than possibly coming to America, or your dad coming to America, and then all of a sudden you getting your ROTC. I'm talking about what is the ultimate.
Well, actually, the birth of my children.
So that's a lot of days.
There's a lot of days in there because I've I've always supported him. When I divorced my first wife, I was there during all their plays, all their athletics.
It's a good dad right
all
there.
and I didn't do it because I went above and beyond. My current wife.
How do you
Denise,
do it?
I don't know. I think
I mean, seriously, like, how do you do it? Some people can barely even do a 9-to-5 shift, and you've already been a police officer for 30 years.
Well-
if you're just tuning in right now, Fernando Marin has been in the police officer for 30 years. He did Strategic Air Command as a captain in the United States Air Force. And then he's telling me all this stuff about working in the airports. He's done more in his lifetime than probably some people's 10 lifetimes. Seriously, like, incredible.
Well, I tell you what, if I had more time, I'd discuss a lot of other things. But I know that we're on a little bit of time schedule.
Yeah.
But again, I would just tell the people of today is that, there's always hope. Make
That's all
sure
you can
that
do.
make sure you can, because one day or not, you're going to meet God. Whether you believe in him or not, you're going to meet Jesus. You're going to meet God.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Fernando Marin, an incredible human being living here in Johnson County. You're our very own Fernando Marin. Unbelievable. Thank you, Fernando.
I appreciate
You're
it.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
Here's important new information.